helped raise hundreds of millions of dollars and build technologies used by billions of people across the globe. He's an international best-selling author, serial entrepreneur, and globally recognized expert on disruption, innovation, and reinventing yourself and your business. Over the last 3 decades, he's advised brands like Coca-Cola, Disney, and Microsoft, held leadership roles at Sony, Universal Studios, and Deloitte, and helped grow major companies before they even IPO'd. His latest book, The Second Act Advantage, is all about using your purpose, your experience, and how to use AI to build your most impactful chapter yet. Today's conversation will cover identifying billion-dollar opportunities and constraints in solving scaling businesses, how to build trust and leverage in today's shifting AI landscape, and how AI and mindset shape the future of today's work. Jay Samit, welcome to today's show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, of course. So when you look back at your career, Jay, from Sony to LinkedIn to advertising and advising Fortune 500 companies and CEOs, what is the one decision or shift that created the biggest compounding effect over time?
Well, I'll tell you the hardest lesson to learn. For years, when you're ahead of the curve, when things seem obvious to you, I've been on the internet since before you were born. I started in '78. I was the first to put video on a computer, video games, digital music, all these first. The trajectory seemed obvious, just as was chairman of one of the public AI companies for the past 7 years, long before most people heard of AI. But I would go in and have a solution for a major corporation, and I'd leave frustrated. Why don't they get it? I remember going and flying to Armonk, New York to meet the CEO of Pepsi, walking down a long hallway to his office, and every assistant's desk had an IBM Selectrix typewriter on it. There wasn't a computer on the CEO C-suite floor. And I knew the meeting was going to be a disaster. And on flying back, I realized that person, whoever you're talking to, made it to their desk, made it to their position of authority, and they feel that what got them there will get them further. So it's not their job to get it. It's my job to be able to explain the future in a way that people in the past can solve it. On an individual level, I'm a big believer in a very simple thing. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So it doesn't take much to try. You will fail. Your parents, teachers, others tried to dissuade you from taking risks because they wanted to shield you from pain. Pain is how you learn. Success teaches you nothing, okay? So you fail your way forward because each time there's only 2 outcomes. You earn or you learn, but either way you're propelled forward. And some of the biggest companies and the billionaires that we think of today as always being rich, their first companies failed. The first several companies failed. So that's why I did my first book trying to pay it forward and teach people how to do this. And my books are now in over a dozen languages. I've heard from people in 140 countries, and they thanking me for changing their life, but I didn't do anything. I just kind of helped them take the blinders off.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And for context for today's viewers, I've read Jay's books multiple times and have looked up to him as a business leader in the space. So Jay, you're speaking a lot about opportunity and how some people, even though they love and want the best for you, can hold you back. So when you evaluate an opportunity today, like what's the first sign that tells you this could become a billion-dollar company or an outcome versus just a good business?
Okay, so the size of the business is the size of the impact. If you make the world's perfect, horse saddle for jockeys that weigh 300 pounds, not a big market, right? Somebody once sent a business plan to me that said if every American ate 1 rabbit a week, like, not going to happen, okay? So on the other hand, what's something that massively changes everything? If every company and society and everything had no problems, it'd be really hard to become an entrepreneur because entrepreneurs don't sell things, they solve things. If you solve for 5 people, you're popular, or solve for 100 or 1 million, you're rich. Solve for 1 billion, you change the trajectory of humanity. We're one click away from 6 billion people, so you have that ability. So what's the problem you're solving? How many people does it affect? And why now? It's the why now is where you make the money. AI has suddenly changed everything. When you read Disrupt You, when it first came out over 12 years ago, I said half of the jobs would be disappearing by 2030. When I spoke at Davos, the head of the International Monetary Fund was on the stage before I was, and she said 1/3 of all jobs will disappear in the next 2 years. So it's no longer the lunatic futurist, this is what's happening. So whether by choice or circumstance, every career gets disrupted. So instead of saying there, my job's going away, if you sit at a desk and look at a screen, AI can do it without the desk and without the keyboard and without you. But in the near term, the next 2 years or so, you won't be replaced by AI. You'll be replaced by somebody using AI better than you. So there's your opportunity.
Yeah, I agree 100% on that. It's finding the solution, and you presented the problem, and you must have that agency to find the solution as well. So for you, Jay, what's a time you saw something early and then others missed it?
You've just talked about 40 years of my life. I don't like competition, so I like to go where somebody else isn't. Anytime you've ever applied for a job, whatever that job is, by definition, that job existed, which means somebody else is more qualified because they've done it. Somebody's probably better connected. Somebody's probably better looking. I hate that person. But if you do something no one else has done, by definition, you're the best in the world at it. So then all you have to do is defend your turf. So in the beginning, I saw that pictures and video would get onto a computer. First guy to put pictures on a computer. First guy to ship a product that had video to go on a computer. These are obvious steps that you see. I didn't invent the chips. I didn't invent what makes it happen. But then one day, somebody put sound into computers. I know this sounds like I'm talking about the Stone Age for those that are much younger. And I was making video games. I said, wait a second, instead of video games being beep, 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 what if I put rock and roll music into it? Okay, how do you do that? No one ever did it. So instead of trying to figure it all out alone, I said, who's the most powerful person in that industry? How can I make them my partner in this project? And the rest is history. And so I followed that pattern of how do you make it happen? And obviously, as you get more experience and more time and build a network, the how becomes inevitable, right? But in the beginning, you can still crack it. I didn't start knowing anybody. If you would have told me when I was your age that dozens of friends would become billionaires, I had not met a millionaire. I have no idea what you're talking about. You're insane. But look at the world we're in. Every 22 hours, there's a new self-made billionaire. Make $1 billion yesterday? No. Can you make $1 billion tomorrow? Yes.
Yeah. And with your 40 years of experience, that's amazing. So across all the founders that you've worked with, what's the most common constraint that they're unaware of that's like tends to limit their growth? Is it like mindset, some execution strategy?
So for limiting their growth, that's a different issue. And the second act advantage is really about people that maybe never tried launching a business. Maybe they put in their 20 years playing professional football, they can't play anymore, or they went to the Olympics and they were 2/100th of a second late. And now what they've been doing since they were 8 years old, they have to start over at 20. So it doesn't matter when it starts. You can teach people how to start something with nothing. I don't know if you read Future Proofing You, where I took a homeless immigrant and mentored him 1 day a week for a year, gave him no cash, no business contacts, and he had to start a business that had $0. And spoiler alert, if you're reading that book, he goes from homeless to self-made millionaire in under a year. But when you talk about scaling, it's a whole shift. In the beginning, you have to make every dollar look like you spent $100. You have to hold on to every penny as long as you can. When you hit the inflection point that you know it works, and it's all about how much of that new turf that I've outlined can I grab, you have to pour buckets of money as fast as you can. Look at the AI companies blowing through $200 billion of VC money this year. 83% of all VC money went to a couple of companies in the AI space. That is insane. Why are they doing that when they'll be broke? Because whoever gets scale first wins. We live in a monopolistic environment, meaning you can reach the whole market. So if you're the one, I did the first auction, it grew into something that you know is eBay. Can you name the second biggest auction site? No. I worked with Reid Hoffman to launch LinkedIn. Can you name the second biggest social business network? It's a winner take all. So doing that shift of mindset of you've been struggling for 5 years, 2 years, however long, and you're wisely frugal to suddenly open that valve and do blitz scaling. In many cases, it takes a change of management team. It's a tough chasm for many people to get across.
Yeah, that's a great answer. So to tailor the next question more around your upcoming book. So if you were to recommend to like a person who's just starting, how should they increase their surface area of opportunity from 0 today? And then like what would their plan look like in the first, let's say, 30 days?
So the reason I call it the second act advantage as opposed to my earlier books is if you're coming at this having had some experience, you now have a huge advantage over anybody in the first time. Matter of fact, founders that are 50 and older have 3 times the success rate of those younger than 50. And you say, why? One, they've matured in their thinking. They've dealt with obstacles. They've dealt with difficult people. They've figured out that part of the game. Number 2, they weren't sitting there alone for 50 years. They have a network of people that they know. So they're when I started my first company, I was in my 20s and I had a solution for Ford Motor Company that would save them $600 million a year. Couple of problems. I lived in LA. I knew nothing about the automotive industry, and I knew nobody in Detroit. So what I figured out is, how do I solve for that? And when I saw that a football coach from Michigan State had just retired, I go, everybody in Michigan would like to meet him. Every Ford exec is a football fan of their local thing. I hired him. He walked me in. They talked about the game from some year that I know nothing about. And then they go, what's the kid here for? I get my 5 minutes and the rest is history. So there's a way to crack it. So in the second act advantage, we're starting at a different place. You have those skill sets, but you may not be up to date on how AI can be a force multiplier. So it used to be, to start a business, you had to have a ton of money. You had to have a room full of gear. Now you can use Amazon Cloud. Most of the software tools have free levels at the beginning. So there's no reason why you can't use the same technology that the largest corporations are doing, but you're more efficient. You don't have to wait for somebody to give you permission. I mean, you age up and you expense out to where you end up running large companies with tens of thousands of people, and the progress is slow because there's very few people that have the authority to make a seismic change. So the second act advantage really goes into it. The second thing that's different with this book, and different than any other book that anybody's read, is when you write a book, it has 2 flaws. First one is, the second it hits paper, it's out of date. I can't update it. Something's changed. The other thing is, I don't know where you, the reader, are at in your journey. Are you a young person out of school? Or are you somebody that just got laid off in the middle of their career? Or are you somebody that's bored out of their mind because they retired and realized this is the worst thing for your health, is to sit around and do nothing? So we built an AI specifically as a mentor to come with the book. It's free with the book. It's free with Second Act Advantage. We don't collect data. It's for you to have somebody that can ask any question without being embarrassed. I'm thinking that it would be cheaper for me to live overseas. Where? How do I do that? How do I get a visa? Or I want to set up a nonprofit. How do I do that? Or I don't know what I want to do. Is there a way that I can take a test because I'm not very introspective? Do I like to work with other people? Do I want to do my own thing? Do I want to consult? So now you have this trusted friend that gives you daily motivation, because motivation is like a shower. You need it all the time. And that's never been done. And so I'm really excited to unleash, the team calls it Digital J, so that people can really have the greatest impact. Because we've all read something, oh, that's really good. And then how do I put that into action? What's my next step? How do I write a plan? And now you have somebody that's there 24/7 working with you. And if new tools come along or new ways of doing it, ask Digital J and you'll be up to date.
Yeah, that's an amazing way to not just include all the experience in your second Active Vantage book, but additionally to have Digital J with you. Because with me, whenever I read a book, I always tend to struggle of like, what's the next best step forward? Of like, what should I implement? What should I do? I have read 300 plus pages of information. How can I condense all that into the one tactical step? So that tactics then leads to execution. So if to speak about AI and then how AI can assist you, like Digital J, if AI is maybe lowering the barrier to how execution is done, does that make ideas more valuable or less valuable over time?
So ideas are worthless. Ideas have always been worthless. It's what you do with the idea that creates value. Okay. I can't tell you how many times you'll have somebody go, oh, I had that idea for Facebook. Oh, I had that idea. And what did you do with it? Right. By the way, if you're starting out, no one's going to steal your ideas, because it's a ton of work to turn an idea into something. But to phrase your question differently, curiosity, always wondering why, always seeing gaps in the market, creativity. So I talk about what's valuable in the second Active Vantage now. I took calculus in high school. I'm still waiting for when I'm going to use it. Not to say it's not an important thing, and it's a great thing for some people, but would have rather learned about paying my taxes, something real practical. But what you're going to see is now, let's just take how the internet's used. By 2027, that's next year, the majority of all traffic on the internet will not be human. And no, dogs aren't getting on the internet. It's agentic AI. It's agents that go out there. And for those that haven't used or created or worked with it, and you need no programming background, by the way, for any of this, you just talk to it or type to it. Microsoft, Facebook, Apple are laying off tens of thousands of engineers because AI does it better. AI does managing better. AI does accounting and legal better. AI does medical better. The number of jobs that are going to be wiped out is devastating. But you can also do things more efficiently, where you would have had to hire an assistant, hire somebody to schedule, hire somebody to say, when between your calendar and my calendar, can the three of us get together to do a Zoom? All that can be done while you're sleeping. You want to buy a new iPhone. Send the agent out there to see who has it the cheapest. You might look at a Google search at 5 different places. It can look at everything. Right? So how we use this stuff. So now that brings who is behind the curve that you can get forward. I mean, I don't know how to fly a plane. I was brought in to help United Airlines. I've eaten a lot of McDonald's, but I've never run a McDonald's. Brought in to turn that around. I've worked with governments to turn them around. It's not that you have to be a domain expert, because we can use Google to look up when was the War of 1812. If you need Google to do that, you have bigger problems. But it's what to do with that information. And so the big problem that I see with the dumbing down of people is yes, you can get any question answered and use ChatGPT as if you were doing a Google search. Huge waste. The knowledge goes into how you're framing what that question is. And that question can be pages and pages long of complexity of what you're trying to do. I have in my Substack, jsamit.substack.com, coming out, it's either this Sunday or the next Sunday, a guy whose dog was dying. He was very upset. It's a furry member of the family. So he literally started using AI agents to look at all the research to figure out what you could do with the tumor. And since you don't have to go through some protocols as human testing, he was able to make a vaccine that got rid of the tumors in his dog and extend his dog's healthy years. Mind blowing. This isn't a scientist. This isn't a medical doctor. There was another person that in high school, came up with a better way for detecting cancer than anybody's ever had before. Their parents weren't doctors. I mean, what high school kids are doing in science fairs, and when I look at the national winners each year, I made a volcano out of baking soda and vinegar. Spent most of it painting the volcano to look cool. People at that age, because no one's told them no yet, are solving real problems. So what problem do you want to solve? And it doesn't have to be world hunger. If you can solve that, God bless, do it. But it can be something real basic. And the second act advantage, tell the story of a retired civil engineer. He's sitting getting his oil changed, his Jiffy Lube, flipping through some old National Geographic, and he sees guys hanging from a rope going across a river because when the Nile floods in rainy season, they can't get to the hospital, they can't get to town, kids can't get to school. And he's like, I could build an Indiana Jones style rope bridge and connect the town. So he got off his butt, he flew halfway around the world, he did this, but then comes the good part. If you want to have joy in your life, solve for others. He found joy in doing this and being useful. So he set up a charity, Bridges to Prosperity, and he's built hundreds of these around the world now, connecting millions of people, changing their lives. Wouldn't you like to make the world a better place? And you can build a business that does well and does good. And so that's where I'm trying to help people that never took the chance.
Yeah, that's a great response. And it's interesting too, and just to go back to your point of the context, AI will help you with the growth of your execution, but it's also the skill set too. With agentic AI agents, I'm very familiar with AI agents. There's the Claude bots and the massive growth from there, but it's also the mindset too. And I think that's what it all kind of boils down to is like, you have a problem, how are you going to solve it? And I'm glad that the second act advantage adds on to that. So while we're just speaking about your upcoming book.
Let me touch on that before you get to the next one.
Yeah.
One of the ways I used AI in this book, it doesn't write as well as I do. I'm a writer, okay? But when I finished what I thought was a really good book, I didn't ask it to proofread, that's been done and humans will do it again. And, spelling, that's a stupid use. I said to it, I want this to be the definitive book on this topic. It's had access to everything that's out there. What is missing to make it be the definitive book? Because we all have blind spots. And yes, the various AIs, and I use all of them to compare, they suggested things that I intentionally chose not to put in there because I thought it was extraneous and off the focus. But it had one topic that was never on my radar. And I go, that's an oversight. So now let me write on that topic and make sure that I've answered that part of people's quest and journey. So sorry, I cut you off of your question.
Oh, no worries. And just actually to add on to your point too, I recently went to the New Hampshire FBOLA event, Future Business Leaders of America, in Manchester, New Hampshire. And one of the guest speakers there was this chief marketing officer of Vimeo, so a billion-dollar company. And Charlie was fantastic. And during his presentation, it was specifically about the use of AI and then how can you use it to benefit you. And he specifically talked about the prompting of like how you can use the AI to get what you want, but also find the blind spots that you said and how to solve it. And one way he said, very simple, is just to say, do a good job, and it can increase the likelihood of the AI giving you a better response by like 10 to 15%. So I believe that's a really great strategy of what you outlined, of like prompting it, but also making sure that it can help you with the guidance too. So while we're also speaking about your book, like what was the favorite part of the creation process of the second act advantage?
Well, favor for me and favor for the reader are going to be two different things, which I always find fascinating because it's what's most useful to you. What's there's nothing in here that's rocket science. What is interesting, if we're born in the 20th century, most of what we were taught about how to live long and how to have a long health span was BS. It was wrong. The food pyramid I was raised on was created by lobbyists. So if you make it to 60, you have a pretty good chance that you'll make it to 90, which means your second act will be longer than your first act. So two things. Why not be as healthy as you can for as long as you can? Now, for those that don't know me, I'm not a gym rat. I am not a health food yogi, okay? My favorite foods are pizza, pasta, and pastrami, okay? Having said that, I want to live as long as possible, but I'm also lazy. So yes, I know all the things. I should go to the gym for X number of hours every day. But for most people, when you tell them all those things, it becomes so overwhelming. There's a biohacker that's going to live to 150, he says, and he takes 200 pills a day, and it's 20 hours of his day to live longer. I don't see the value if you don't have any time to live. Why do it? So there's a chapter, to answer your question roundabout way, that I call The Lazy Nerd's Guide to Adding 28 Years to Your Life. So it's the least amount of things to do. There's only 9 things to do to add 28 years to your life. And spoiler alert, 5 of them you do while you're asleep. I can sign up for anything that's being asleep. And a basic one is we treat sleep as an afterthought. The meat puppet that we walk around in really needs rest and to regenerate each cell. There's a thing called autophagy and what intermittent fasting does. And we have an ability to wipe out cancer cells. Wouldn't you want to listen to your body and let your body do that? I would. Nobody ever told me. And all it involves is me sleeping. Okay, sign me up. So it's fun information. It's useful information. And the most inspiring in what I've done, you've read my other books, is I try to showcase stories of people that make me feel like I've wasted my life. Because look at what people that had nothing did to inspire others to say, well, I'm starting at that place. I can do that too. And there's a wonderful story about a woman that was busy with family and stuff and never got to go to college. So she drives across the state of Kansas, moves into the dorm. The only difference about this was she graduated high school in the 1920s, and she's a freshman at 94. She graduated. She went to grad school and got her master's. And you say, why? Well, one, why not? But two, think of the inspiration and that legacy of what you can do that her children, grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren can see. You know, people that run their first marathon at 85 or climb Mount Everest, you know, those are the extremes. But there's also the people that go to the dog shelter and see nobody, you know, they volunteer, but nobody's adopting the old dogs. So they set up a charity to match old dogs with old people. And then in the process, takes the old dogs one day a week to old age homes so old people can play with dogs, which releases serotonin and makes you feel good. And it doesn't take much to change the world. Everybody thinks about changing the world, but most people don't think about changing themselves.
Yeah, it's phenomenal, especially the dog story that you just outlined. Like we have a dog rescue and he's probably 7 to 8 years old. He's a hound mix. And once we adopted him, it was great to see him light up. It's like people treat me with love and respect. I love these people. So when it comes to just to quickly transition to what you talked about of not just making it about your favorite part of the book, but how can the viewer, the reader, understand it, digest it, and feel as an amazing experience and also implement. Since you've read multiple books, wrote multiple books over the course of your career, what has changed in your thought process of creating the piece of content, let's say, disrupt you to the second act advantage?
Excellent question. I like that question. When I got tired of building billion-dollar companies running, and I didn't understand the purpose of having $1 billion. It makes no sense. No fault if that's your goal, but for me, it was like, there's got to be a better use of my time. And I realized that I could teach people how to have success because nobody was teaching it. And everybody else that claims that they're doing it or selling you some course or this and trying to make money off of people that want help. I'm not selling leadership. I'm not selling coaching. I'm not selling anything. A book is the price of a Frappuccino, but that's me leveraging the infrastructure of the publishing industry so that the only place people buy books in the spur of the moment is 13 hours on an airplane. They'll actually read. Okay, so how do you get into bookstores? So solving for that. So the change was, so I taught at the largest engineering university in the country, USC School of Engineering. And some of the brightest engineers and brightest business students had the worst ideas. Like they didn't get it. And they didn't get it because they learned engineering. They learned spreadsheets. They didn't learn how the world works. So wrote something practical, but even though I'd run global companies, my blinders were the US market is a huge market. I'm writing a book for Americans. I'm giving examples from America. I'm talking about movies that we've seen and cultural touch points. Then I started hearing from readers in 140 plus countries. That is humbling. I call them love letters. I can have a lousy day and somebody sends me an email, a dentist in Pakistan that it's changed his life, or a woman that was committing suicide. I mean, moving things. And I got to tell you, I've made hundreds of millions, if not billions in some of my corporate jobs, and I yet to get an email from the board going, hey, thanks. I did have one chairman that said, you know, where would you and your family like to go? But that's what's changed is people are thirsting for knowledge. This tsunami of job loss is massive. So I'm now writing with perspective to help anybody anywhere. I sit on the board of a company with somebody that's on the board of Foxconn. Foxconn's who makes your PlayStation, your iPhone, all the little stuff. And Foxconn now has 9 lights out factories. And you go, what's a lights out factory? It's a factory where the lights are out because there's no humans in it. McDonald's near me has a McDonald's with no employees. Okay. The #1 job in the United States on tax return. Want to guess what it is?
Not sure.
Truck driver. There are autonomous trucks doing millions of miles in Europe. There's autonomous cars. I've had one for almost 7 years now, and it's wonderful. Is it perfect? No. Are humans perfect? No. But if this is all happening, and it's not going to happen equal, all those countries that suddenly rose from poverty by being low-cost manufacturing, there's no more factory jobs. All those countries that rose from poverty by better education and creating millions of engineers, engineering jobs are gone. Nobody's preparing for this. If you believe in universal basic income, I've got swampland for you. No one's coming to save you. But if you're looking to save yourself, that's what the second half advantage is about. And especially for people that get pushed out. The average person reaching retirement age in the United States, 50% of them have zero money to their name. They actually have a negative net worth because they have debt. That does not sound like a golden parachute or golden years. And yet, At the same time, people that are more expensive, people over 40 are getting pushed out of jobs because you can get somebody younger to do it cheaper or AI to do it for free. Those people have the wisdom, have the networks, have all the advantage. They have the second act advantage. So why not help them ignite that? And it's for a selfish reason. If everybody's solving problems, they're making life easier, right? I would make a statue and a national holiday for the Carrier brothers. Those are the guys that invented air conditioning. Talk about something that we don't, we just take it for granted, or refrigeration, or vaccines, or whatever it is that allows us to live our lives. I want more people solving stuff. So why not help people? And here's the secret. The number one thing to live longer isn't exercise, isn't diet, and isn't sleep. It's what the Japanese call ikigai. It's having a purpose, a reason to get out of bed, a connection to other people. So I teach people how to do that, because many times when you lose your job, leave your career, whether by choice or not, you're losing your self-esteem, you're losing your identity, you're losing your interaction and social network, and you're sitting alone. And here's what happens. 1/3 of your short-term memory disappears in the first 12 months. Your body declines, your health declines. Most of the things that we assume with getting old are not because we aged. It's because we stopped living. So if I can dissuade people from those rumors, and remember, retirement 100 years ago, when the concept of retiring was invented, life expectancy was 35. Great. Even more recently, NFL players, majority die by 55. Nobody told them that going in. So let's teach people how they can live longer. At the same time, AI, which has figured out how to map the folding of every protein and everything, will get rid of all your cancers and most of your diseases during this decade. So wouldn't you want to be around for the healthy stuff? I mean, AI just worked with scientists in Germany to work with stem cells. You lose a tooth, no more crown, no more denture. You regrow a tooth like you're a lizard getting a tail. This stuff is science fiction. It's witchcraft. It's amazing, but it's now reality. Who wouldn't be excited to get on board? And if you're afraid, it's hard for you to realize at your age, but when PCs came out, and I'd been on a computer forever, why would I ever need a computer in my home? I mean, this is insane, why would you ever, you have to learn your multiplication tables. Do you think you'll be walking around with a calculator in the future? Yeah. We walk around with the machine in our pocket right now that is more powerful than what got us to the moon, yet we use it to look at cat videos, okay? Why not use it to make money and to live a richer, fuller life? And so that's what the second act advantage teaches and walks you through, and comes with an AI to make it possible.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. And just to add on to your point, there's a lot of things that you just covered, and I want to put a pin on just a few. First goes into like what you're optimizing for in the first place, whether it is life, content, like from a social media marketing perspective. If you want to create a video, are you optimizing for views? Are you optimizing for dollars? Are you a mix of both? But the kind of first thing that you have to answer the question is, why are you doing it to begin with? And the why are you doing it to begin with part goes back to what you mentioned of like the impact. And I've heard of like friends, families, people who've retired, and they tied their work identity to that so much, and they just either lost a sense of purpose, and then eventually, and sadly, that they passed away earlier than expected because they tied their self-worth to it. And second point is, I love that you brought up the legacy aspect too. And your book, the upcoming Second Act Advantage, reminds me of not just the bringing people 0 to 1 on like the future, like what is coming. But additionally, it reminds me of the 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. It gives you like tactical, implementable steps to do it. And it all goes back to legacy. And one quick side note as well is legacy is super important. And if you're familiar with Mark Victor Hansen, the co-author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, he's been focusing on that on his like social media presence as well. Like he's trying to help younger people like me last not just 10, 20 years in business, but their entire life.
I love how everybody you're mentioning is a friend. So great examples, but let me take legacy one step forward. Who built the pyramids? I don't mean Egyptians. Who built the pyramids? You know what? Who came up with the sciences that were lost in when the Library of Alexandria burned down, or when we lost touch with the Greeks or the Middle Ages? So in the past, your legacy was maybe to your kids and grandkids, and then your dust. But now that AI, LLMs, and other forms of AI are sucking in all of human knowledge, whatever you create, whatever positive impact you make, will live on as part of AI. So you asked the question, why are we here? And I actually end the book looking at the pantheon of philosophy and religious ways of looking at that to the conclusion that I came up with, because at some point, AI will get consciousness. And the basic definition of consciousness is, why am I here? And if you don't have an engaging second act, why am I here is what you'll say when you walk into the living room and you don't remember why you walked into the living room, and you go, why am I here? That's not the existential question we should be looking for. It's, what purpose? We're alive for a short period of time. We have this gift of being alive at a moment where we get to possibly live for, a century. My father is 92, has all his marbles about him. It's an amazing thing. Let's unite. Let's figure out, because the people in power, they want to stay in power. That's the history of the world, okay? No one's coming to make the world better for everybody, but everybody can make the world better for everybody. So getting knowledge in the hand of people, getting tools in the hands of people, regardless of where they are. And that's why, if you would have told me that my books are in Lithuanian and Thai and Chinese and Korean, unbelievable. But the other unbelievable part, and we talked about this before we turned it on, is, and one of the US phone companies now makes this possible, and everybody will have it possible soon, with no app, no software, I can talk to somebody on the phone that just speaks Russian. They're hearing me in Russian, and I'm hearing them in English, or Arabic, or Swahili, or 50 plus languages. So the world just got real small. There's no gatekeepers to capital. I talk about that in the second act advantage, between crowdfunding and small business loans and all this stuff. There's money there for you, okay? I've raised just shy of $1 billion for startups. I took one kid from my class. I said, hop on a plane, let's go up to Sand Hill Road. And she got the third most money ever given to a female founder, which shows how sexist they are up there. But still in school, and you get a giant check, it's all about learning how. And so that's all I'm doing this for, because we got a lot of problems, and everybody's turning our social media things into ways to divide people, because anger is easier to monetize.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, of what I just ended with. And to cover what you said with the AI and like how it will affect the society, it covers AI will democratize, commoditize, and then like also the monetization aspect too. And I know we've covered a lot about people getting started, people who have the mindset to get started, etc. And we covered some tactics, but once people start implementing the tactics, they tend to get confused around they're making progress or momentum. So like, what's your way of distinguishing between the two in a business?
It's really easy to do everything in business. If it can't be measured, it can't be improved. Okay? So measure what's important and look at data. Data doesn't lie. Data doesn't have an ego. Invite data to every meeting. Data is your best friend. And I'll give you my go-to example because it's one of my favorites. There was a time when you could date without being able to move your thumb from left to right. Okay? There was computer dating. It was a still picture and reading about the person, and then you emailed them and da-da-da-da-da. So when broadband came along, 3 guys said, wait a second, we can make a better dating site. We'll have videos. You can hear people's personalities, see their face. It's called Tune In Hookup, okay? Built a beautiful site. Perfect. Better than anything in the market. First video was a guy standing in front of an elephant cage explaining at the zoo why you should date him. God knows that's the sexiest thing you can do. Well, the site was a disaster. Nobody wanted to date these losers. Did they go out of business? No. They looked at the data. And the data gave them an insight that nobody else would have because nobody had been that far down the path of making a failing business. They saw nobody wanted to date these people, but they sure wanted to show their friends how bad the dating pool was and send those videos around. So at the end of the first year, they changed the name of Tune In Hookup to YouTube and sold it for several $1 billion with no revenue. Data gives you the ability to pivot. Okay? Twitter was a music site. I mean, I could go on and on of all the things that pivot, but they didn't pivot because somebody had a new idea. They pivoted because they went deeper into the weeds, farther into the jungle than anybody did off of the, oh, I have an idea. And they saw something and learned something, and the data backed it up. And if you're in digital marketing is basically one thing. When you find something that works, every dollar I spend in advertising, I make 2. How fast can I spend $100 or $1,000 until I break my model? And so that blitz scaling, if you have a product or service that helps a large enough market, you could become a millionaire overnight, literally overnight. And I tell the story, hate giving away the best stories in the second act advantage, but a middle-aged woman, husband cheated on her, left her divorced, in debt, and depressed, okay? Not in good shape. Money was tight, and somebody told her, well, either, get therapy or get a dog, and she got a dog. But getting dog food's expensive. Local pet shops had a contest, make a Christmas card. If you win, you get dog food for the year. So she took a picture of her cute little bulldog, and it said on the front of the card, I got a dog for my husband for Christmas. And then you open up, it said, good trade, huh? People thought that was pretty funny. They liked it. She sold 1 million of them the first year. Her business now does $50 million a year. It's that easy, folks. You'll stumble, you'll make mistakes, but you'll learn, you'll grow, and you'll meet other seekers. You'll be hanging around with other people that see potential as opposed to misery.
Yeah, that's interesting because I've personally felt that as well, of where I used my emotions and feelings over data. And that's where you can be feel like you're doing a lot, learning a lot. You learned, but you also have to go to the execution side. You focused a lot on strategy, but didn't execute. So like even thinking at a higher level, but I didn't actually move everything forward. So when it comes to, because I know we spoke about mindsets, tactics, etc., I want to kind of wrap up today's conversation into be more implementable steps for the viewer, like what you're outlining for the second act advantage. So if someone watches this and wants to actually apply how you think, what's one decision that they should make immediately after today's conversation?
We have exercises in Digital J Can Do It or in the book to help you figure out what you enjoy. okay? And I don't mean eating pizza, okay? Some people are terrified of public speaking. I fly around the world. It energizes me. I love the reactions of a crowd, okay? Some people hate having to sit and work with others to make something happen. They like, leave me alone and let me just do it. Other people want to be part of a team. So go through and figure out how you work best. Second exercise, what skill, knowledge do you have that you want to monetize? And so if you like to work with your hands, these are obvious examples. Maybe it's an Etsy type business, okay? If you know the absolute best way to become $1 million insurance salesperson, maybe it's creating an online course. So all of these things, and then what are the softwares to do that, and what are the tools, and who has free tools, and step by step. I was just on a different podcast that had like a point counterpoint two people, and they both read Second Act Advantage. And what they were arguing about, and it was funny because they wanted me to decide. One said this book was really inspirational. It inspired me, wants them to do things and da-da-da-da-da. And the other guy says, no. This was one of those actionable books. You just follow step by step and you can launch. Jay, which is it? And I said, it's whatever the reader needs, because that's what sticks with you.
Yeah, that's great. And just to wrap up today's time, I know we talked about everything that I previously mentioned, but I also want to briefly speak on like the next step even further of like how you actually grow it. And I want to speak about your advice as well when you mentor those companies. So when it comes to growing a business, one of the most important things is building that trust, building that relationship. So there's two kind of types of marketing. There's like direct and indirect marketing. So when you advise a company, I know that direct marketing is like easy to do. Indirect is hard to measure, but it compounds more over time. How do you personally think about that trade-off when like advising companies?
So the size of the company makes a difference. Are we talking about Ford Motor, Coca-Cola, United Airlines? Or are we talking about 10 people making $1 million or $30 million a year? So let's focus on the smaller business, okay? I'm going to put you on the spot. You will get this wrong, but it'll help it stick with your listeners. Why do you hire a PR firm?
I would say you'd hire a PR firm to enhance your brand and solve any problems that a company may face.
Wrong. Want to have a second guess?
I'll let you go ahead.
Okay. You hire a PR firm to get to their clients. So if you're making something, you're making a business, you have a target demographic. You're not the only one going after that demographic. I don't mean a competitor. I mean, if you make orthopedic shoes, that's for old people. There's somebody else making vitamins and there's somebody else making life insurance, okay? So if you're a startup, you do not have access to the best creative talents. You don't have access to the best channels. You don't have access to the best press. You're fighting to get noticed. And in a world where 70% of all the traffic is bots, you're drowning, okay? So when I started as a young company making software, I'm like, Bill Gates just came out with Windows. He's a giant company. They're going to do all kinds of cool stuff. How do I show him that my thing can help him sell more Windows PCs and more of that, my software? And I'll give you the end of the story first. So I'm your age. Nobody knows me. There's never been an article about me. And the first video for Windows that shipped, the first stuff that went, was the first co-branded product Microsoft ever did. It had my company name on there too. When IBM launched PCs, there's a company that's been around for a century. Every one of their PCs came bundled with my software. Okay? pretty good for you're sitting around in your 20s and nobody knows you and you haven't raised a dime from VCs or anything. So in the case of Microsoft, he started a wacky business. Like there was no industry like that. He gets tons of attention. He's the world's richest man. He may not have been the world's richest man yet, but he was darn close. And who's counting billionaires back then? You could be in the Forbes 400 for having $200 million. So who's his PR firm? Little PR firm. It was out of Oregon. Wonderful ladies. I reached out to them to hire them. They're thrilled to get a new customer. I then explain what my business does, and they go, oh my God, we have a client that would love to work with that. Oh, really? Do tell. Next thing you know, at the giant trade shows, Microsoft pays for prime positioning. Microsoft has all the stuff. An operating system is a pretty boring thing that no one's going to stop and play with. It has to do something. So the something that was doing on all this stuff was my software. So my first years in business, I had millions of dollars of marketing that cost me nothing. Later, I was much more successful in running a large company, Sony. You could say, well, you just spend money. No, I didn't have the money to spend, and I was launching a music store to compete with iTunes. Steve Jobs was spending $100 million a year advertising iTunes. My budget was $0.00. So I went to my favorite three letters, if you read my book, OPM, Other People's Money. And I said, who's in trouble? Who needs help? Who has a problem? Because they're going after the same audience I am. And there was a movie called Super Size Me, what Spurlock did, where somebody ate McDonald's for a month and nearly died. And their stock was down and their sales were down. So I went to McDonald's and said, I can make you hip and cool again. Buy a Big Mac, get a free track. They know how to do TV commercials that are great. They have access to the greatest producers and talents and writers. They have the budget to put that everywhere. They also have all the foot traffic in all their stores. They drove 20 million paying customers to my website the first week. I did something like that with Coca-Cola. Great that they know how to market, but I also went to them and said, I forget what the number was. You have 20,000 trucks on the road schlepping Coke around. I want you to put this on the sides of the trucks. I want you to put it on the vending machines. I want you to put it on the fountain cups. I want this. And they did. So the best way to scale is with someone else's expertise and money. And you say, well, why would these companies do this? Because they have size and they have a bunch of people that are afraid to do something new and risky, because then you lose your job and everybody is fearful of disappearing right now. So everybody's in a duck and cover mood in the corporate world. So if I can walk in, ta-ta, here's your solution, run with it all you want, everybody wins. And that, my friends, I've repeated 200 times at least.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I love how you market yourself in the way as not just here's the problem, but here's the solution. Like marketing is the ability to stand out without breaking trust. So when it comes to just wrapping up today's podcast, Jay, one last question for you. Has there been anything that you would like to cover but has not been mentioned yet?
Oh, the open-ended catch-all. If you do not believe how much our economy is going to change over the next 3 years, get your head out of the sand, pour cold water, because it's coming. If you're still afraid of launching out and trying a side hustle or something, I'll leave you with this, because you should visit your grandparents anyway, or visit your parents or whoever. Go talk to some old people and ask them this one question. What's your biggest regret in life? And it will not be something they failed at. I guarantee it. It'll be something they failed to try. If only I tried to see if I could make it as a rock star. If only I could try to see if I did this, da, da, da. That haunts them to the last day of their lives. If only. Live a life without regrets. Try. You will end up no worse than where you are. You will be educating yourself to move forward. And that job that you think gives you security, security is an illusion. And it's becoming more temporal by the moment. So I can't force you to change, but the world will. And hopefully you start working on it in time.
That's a great point to leave off of. Thank you, Jay, for joining today's show. And for anyone who's listening, the second Act Advantage will be coming out, I believe, in May. And it will be a phenomenal book. I can include the links on Amazon for people to pre-order. And it will be a fantastic experience for me to read it when it will be coming out in May. Thank you, Jay, for being on the show. And have a good one, everyone.